Everyone, to go ahead and take your seats, please. It is. We're working. Good morning, everyone. There are chairs to be had. If you're looking for a seat, please do come and take a seat. We're going to be probably 35 minutes. I'd like to ask everyone to please give a round of applause to the American Expeditionary Forces, or AEF, Headquarters Brass Band Quintet. They are part of the official ensemble of the National World War I Memorial in Washington, D.C., and are sponsored by the Doughboy Foundation. And gentlemen, thank you for that very fitting prelude to this very special program. Also, thanks to the American Legion, Dewey Loman Post 109, the 27 Flag Unit, for reminding us of the history of our American flag and the pride of America's service members in honoring that flag. Thank you to the American Legion. I could spend the next 20 minutes if I did a by name thank you to all of the dignitaries here. So suffice it to say, we are welcoming our esteemed guests from the Canadian and French embassies, distinguished military, federal, and state officials, Hello Girls family members, and special welcome to Catherine Bourgeon, granddaughter of Hello Girl Marie Edmee LeRoux. And thank you, Catherine, for breathing life into your grandmother's story of service and for being the catalyst to making sure today happened. I'm Phyllis Wilson, retired Army Chief Warrant Officer and president of the Military Women's Memorial at the entrance to Arlington National Cemetery. We are the only major national memorial to honor the 3 million women, including Edmee LeRoux, who served since the Revolutionary War in the United States. Today to give long overdue and lasting recognition to the U.S. Army Signal Corps telephone operator Marie Edmee LeRoux. She died nearly 80 years ago and was buried here in an unmarked grave, receiving no Veteran Affairs headstones because she and her fellow Army Corps operators were denied veteran status and benefits until 1977, long after she had passed away. Thank you for being here today to witness this tangible recognition from a grateful nation. I invite you to stand, if able, for the national anthem played by the AEF Headquarters Band Quintet, and for the invocation offered by Reverend Ann Weatherholt from the Epiphany Episcopal Church, which was consecrated in 1918 to minister to the soldiers just up the road at Camp Meade. Today, it is the only known World War I chapel remaining in the United States. To our anthem.
Remaining standing, let us pray. A thin wire carrying sounds connecting one place to another, bringing hope, transmitting messages, desperate pleas, hard orders, and essential communiques. The voices of women, the hello girls, bring an unusual tone to the battlefield. Donning uniforms, they enter the Signal Corps, tramping the paths of Camp Meade with smaller feet, yet large hearts and nimble minds, ready to answer the call over there. Edmee was one, along with sisters from across the nation and the globe, who never thought they might use the French learned from family or for dainty drawing rooms to forge a strong alliance with those deep in trenches and sheltering in small villages, battling to preserve their culture and country in the midst of aggression. Only a few were chosen from the many that trained, and after service were swept away, unacknowledged, unheralded, expected to return to the homes of those who could never know or understand the depth of their service. Finally recognize these women of the United States military, now cradled in the eternal arms of love and peace, are remembered for their humble service. Today, as we honor Edmee, we honor them and those who followed their example. Today, as we are joined by one thin wire of this immortal life, we ask God to draw our hearts upward, open our memories, and strengthen our resolve. As we dedicate this marker, may we mark our days by the quality of selfless service, devoted to the higher call for peace, justice, and love. This we ask in the name of the one who gives life. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Reverend Weatherholt and AEF Headquarters Band Quintet. Please welcome Mr. Dan Dayton, the Executive Director of the World War I Commission, to read a proclamation from Senator Chris Van Hollen.
This citation is presented in honor and memory of Marie Edmee LeRoux, in recognition of her distinguished and courageous service to our nation as a part of the Signal Corps female telephone operators unit known as the Hello Girls, with gratitude for her dedication to the defense of freedom and liberty, and with appreciation for all that she did to make a difference in the lives of others. Chris Van Hollen, United States Senator, on this day, the 19th of January, 2024.
So as Mr. Dayton just said, January 19th, 2024 was the original date for this event. A snowstorm swept into the area and we decided to delay, and now you have this kind of weather. I would now like to welcome the Honorable Matt Quinn, the Department of Veterans Affairs Undersecretary for Memorial Affairs, to present Ms. Bourgeon the Presidential Memorial Certificate. A Presidential Memorial Certificate is an engraved certificate signed by the sitting President to honor the memory of honorably discharged deceased veterans. The program was initiated by President John F. Kennedy in 1962 and has been continued by all subsequent presidents. Thank you, Secretary Quinn. My friend, Ms. Lourdes Tiglo, the Director of the Department of Veterans Affairs Center for Women Veterans, will now present flowers to Ms. Bourgeon on behalf of the center and its staff. Thank you, Lourdes. Please welcome back Mr. Dan Dayton, Executive Director of the World War I Commission, to the podium.
Thank you, Phyllis, and thank you all for being here today for this important event. I bring you greetings from the United States World War I Centennial Commission. You know, it was a little more than 100 years ago that 4.7 million American families sent their daughters and sons off to fight a war they didn't start in a land most of them had never seen, in order to win peace and freedom for a people they'd never met. Among them were women of the United States Army Signal Corps, as you know now from all of the remarks, and the reason you're here is that they were telephone operators, and back in the day they were called the Hello Girls. Their service was extraordinary. There's even been a musical written for them in a song called Making History. Writers Cara Reichel and Peter Mills remind us that the Hello Girls connected more than 26 million calls during their service. As America's first women soldiers, they paved the way for women's suffrage in the United States. After the war was over, they continued their fight for recognition and equality for almost 60 years, until finally in 1977, the Hello Girls were granted veteran status by the U.S. Congress. Marie Edmee LeRoux was a Hello Girl. And on behalf of the World War I Centennial Commission, it is a great honor for me to be here today to salute her for her willingness to answer the call and give her faithful and distinguished service to our great nation.
Thank you, Mr. Dayton. We are honored to have another friend of the Military Women's Memorial and of all women veterans. The Maryland Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Mr. Anthony Wood, join us today to deliver remarks. Sir.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. And thank you to the World War I Centennial Commission for hosting this dedication today and inviting me to speak on behalf of Governor Wes Moore and Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller. To the family of Marie Edmee LeRoux, thank you for continuing to share the story of your mother, grandmother, and friend for our country to know. As Maryland Secretary of Veterans Affairs, I am deeply humbled to commemorate and honor a Maryland veteran. While Miss LeRoux's story did not intersect with Maryland until later in her life is emblematic of her unit, the Hello Girls, many of whom were trained in Maryland at Camp Meade, which we know today as Fort Meade. Maryland is proud of her service and proud that she is laid to rest in our state. Today, as we gather to dedicate her grave, it is important to remember her remarkable service and unwavering sacrifice during one of the most pivotal moments in our nation and our world's history. Miss LeRoux's story, like many others, highlights the often overlooked contributions of women in the armed forces. It's a story that deserves to be told, remembered, and cherished. Just as we honor the Hello Girls who served during World War I, let us also remember the countless women who have bravely served our country, often without the acknowledgement that they have rightfully earned. My ask for each of you today is simple but profound. Help us share the story of Miss LeRoux and women veterans like her. When we share the story of women veterans, we empower them to see themselves as just that, veterans, encouraging them to seek out and take advantage of the benefits that they have earned through their dedicated service. And not only that, but by showcasing the incredible achievements of women like Miss LeRoux, we inspire young women to lead lives of service, including considering military service as a noble and viable path. Let us ensure that every woman who has served in the military knows that her contribution is valued, her sacrifice is respected, and her legacy is cherished. And let us provide them with the support and the resources that they need to thrive as they transition to civilian life. The strength of our state and of our nation depends on it. Governor Moore often says that we lead with the philosophy to leave no one behind. When we tell these stories in one small way, we are pledging to not leave women veterans that follow in the footsteps of Miss LeRoux behind. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this momentous occasion as we honor Miss Marie Edmee LeRoux and all women veterans who have selflessly served our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Woods. It is my pleasure now to welcome Ms. Kimberly Jackson, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Chief of Staff, to deliver her remarks. Ma'am.
All right, we are going to try to not have sunglasses on, but no promises. Okay, Phyllis, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and more importantly, thank you for your service and for your leadership of the Military Women's Memorial. Catherine, thank you for so generously sharing your grandmother's remarkable story with us. Devoted family members like you help to keep veterans' stories alive. To our international allies, Ambassador Hillman, Major General St. Louis, and Colonel de Fachon, thank you for joining us today. Canadian, French, and American women have served side by side defending democracy in wars and other conflicts going back generations. Their service and the service of our men and women in uniform today embodies the long history and close relationships between and among our countries. Lieutenant General Morrison could not be here today, but we were joined by his wife Anne and also by Colonel Jacobson, also a fellow member of the Army Reserve Corps. Thank you for being here. Undersecretary Matt Quinn, VA's National Cemetery Administration team made today's event possible. Marie Edmee LeRoux, known affectionately as Edmee, lay in an unmarked grave for nearly 80 years. 80 years. After Catherine reached out to VA, your team took action and delivered evidence in less than 45 days. Matt, the speed and the compassion with which you took care of one of your fellow soldiers is testament to your devotion and to your team's devotion to VA's mission. And VA's Digital Veterans Legacy Memorial, or VLM, will maintain an online page for Edmee in perpetuity, allowing future generations to read about Edmee and to honor her legacy. For everyone in the audience, if you check out the QR code in today's program, you can add your own memories of Edmee and the Hello Girls on her personal VLM page. And last, but certainly not least, to my fellow women veterans in the audience, thank you. As a former Navy reservist, I'm intimately familiar with the fact that women veterans face unique challenges while in service and out of service. You have my word that we at the VA will continue fighting tirelessly to ensure that you and your families have access to the benefits, the service, and the care that you have earned. In a few moments, Catherine is going to share some of the details of her grandmother's story and honorable service. But first, I want to spend a few moments talking about why we must remember Edmee's story and the stories of women veterans like her. Women veterans have served and sacrificed in defense of freedom, of liberty, and of justice in every war and conflict in America's history, all the way back to the Revolutionary War. There are generations of courageous, unsung women veterans taking risks, facing down adversity, and fighting battles in and out of uniform for equality, for inclusion, for opportunity. And the Hello Girls are a key part of that history. Those brave World War I veterans wore the same uniform as men, received the same pay, held the same military rank, swore the same oaths, and served with the same distinction as the men in their unit, but were denied the same honorable discharges when the war came to an end. And when they returned home, their status as veterans was not recognized for 60 years. Those women, and so many of the women who followed, spent their lives demanding rights that would finally lead VA to provide equal care and equal treatment in a safe space for all veterans. They did not seek any special treatment. They just wanted equal treatment. Equal treatment. These women opened doors of opportunity for women like me and over 2 million of my fellow women veterans, which is the fastest growing cohort of veterans in the United States. And this fight for equality continues to guide our mission today, led ably by Lourdes in the front row here. At VA, we're committed to right those wrongs for women veterans and for all veterans. And we still have a lot of work to do. We have a long journey ahead. We must continue improving access, delivering the best outcomes, and earning the trust of the women veterans that we serve. We must make it clear that women veterans, and indeed that all veterans, belong at VA. We must rededicate ourselves to VA's central mission, serving veterans as well as they have served all of us. And that is how we honor Edmee's story best, and the stories of women veterans like her. May we always remember the life and eternal legacy of Edmee LeRoux and the Hello Girls, today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. And now, please welcome Ms. Catherine Brejon to the podium. I'll hold your flowers if you want me to. I love that.
Good morning, everyone. What a glorious day, and welcome. I guess they say the second time around is better. It was really difficult back in January to make the call, but we did the right thing, and we're here today, and I appreciate it very much. When I started my genealogy research almost 2 years ago, I knew nothing about how to do this kind of research or how many people I would end up meeting, and some of you are here today, or that I would even end up on Capitol Hill sharing my grandmother's story. Who knew that 106 years later I would meet and work alongside Carolyn Timby, who's the granddaughter of Grace Banker, the chief of all the telephone operators of the Hello Girls, who was also saluted by General Pershing himself, and Donna Ayres, her great-aunt, Olive Shaw of Unit 2, who also worked for Congresswoman Edith North Rogers on Capitol Hill in the 1930s, and who lived long enough to receive her discharge papers. A question often asked, how did my genealogy research take me to Capitol Hill? While waiting for an answer from the National Archives about my grandmother's military records, I turned to Google to look for the secondary sources, and I found the website for the Congressional World War I Centennial Commission. They sounded important, and I thought they would have some answers. And boy, did they. So after several emails and phone calls, they invited me to join their panel to campaign for the Congressional Gold Medal. But never did I imagine that accepting this invitation would result in this life-changing impact on my family's history, and to have all of you here to be a part of it. Another frequent question asked, thanks, how did the ceremony happen? After a panel session briefing Capitol Hill, the staffers on Capitol Hill, Allison Finkelstein, who's here today, where are you? There you are, and from Arlington National Cemetery, and Jim Bears from National Cemetery Association, Jim, where are you? Asked me if I knew where my grandmother was buried, because people often figure these women are veterans and they would be at National Cemetery, and that's not true. So they asked me, and I said, yes, I do. I just discovered that, and she's buried in Fort Lincoln in an unmarked grave, and the reason was lost to time. I didn't know why. I never expected answering a simple question like that would turn into this magnificent military honor ceremony where she would finally receive her first grave marker and to honor her military service. My only conclusion is it's divine intervention, putting all the right people in the right place at the right time, and I'm filled with joy and gratitude. Doing genealogy research, you never know what you're going to find. And through an online source, a short newspaper article in French was discovered in late September of 2022, almost exactly 100 years to the date, about a contest at the Centocelle Aerodrome, which was a former military airport outside of Rome, Italy. The article was about a parachute jump contest in October of 1922, and there was participating was a French delegation of 6 parachutists. Guess whose name was on that list? Edmee LeRoux. I had to reread the article several times because I couldn't believe it. How did she get involved with that? I guess it was the Roaring '20s in Paris. And then to add to this, there's a bit of a funny coincidence. I did my one and only tandem jump back in 1997, and so maybe it runs in the family. When I was a child, my mother told me that her mother, Edmee, had a beautiful singing voice. Edmee followed her own dream and passion for music and singing by using her native bilingual language skills that led her to answer the call of the U.S. Army in World War I and get a free boat ride to France. Up until now, I only knew the family stories of my grandmother. With my research, I wanted to go beyond those stories. During the hunt, often late at night, I became enraptured looking for her to find out who she was. Thanks to today's online genealogy resources, encouraging friends like a helpful LDS neighbor who's here today, a friend with a special connection, and even total strangers who also became enraptured by her story assisted me to get to know her. I traveled online to find my ancestors, and I traveled in person to meet living relatives in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I discovered my long line of French-Canadian roots. On my maternal side, I'm a descendant of French-Canadian king's daughters, and on my paternal side, I'm a daughter of the American Revolution. So let me tell you a little bit more about my grandmother. She was born in Montreal, Quebec, Canada in 1895 to Joseph Hilaire LeRoux and Blanche Yvonne Héroux. When she was a child, they moved to Providence, Rhode Island, where in 1910 she studied at the Rhode Island School of Design. She was 15 years old. The death of her father in 1911 changed the course of their lives. Her mother remarried an American and moved to Philadelphia, then to Washington, D.C., and eventually to Maryland, where she lived until her passing in 1940. I surmised during the time period of from 1911 to 1917 that Edmee pursued her music studies through a music school called École du Chant Plamondon-Michaud, established by Arthur Plamondon, a famous French-Canadian tenor. He's in the encyclopedia in Canada. And his first wife, Alice Michaud, her stage name, who was a famous French soprano. According to a newspaper article, while a student of this music school, Edmee had won a scholarship which was sponsored by the French government for rising French-Canadian students to study in Paris, but the war interrupted the plan. Nevertheless, she found another opportunity. She answered an ad in an American newspaper. She volunteered to become a bilingual telephone operator in the U.S. Army Signal Corps. Out of about 7,600 applicants, 233 bilingual women were selected, vetted, and trained by AT&T as operators, then by the U.S. Army in basic military drills, procedures, and etiquette. Edmee was 23 years old when she swore an oath of the U.S. Army Signal Corps, and she put on her uniform and assigned to Unit 4. The U.S. Army muster roll in 1918 listed her guardian as Arthur Plamondon, her music instructor. By June 1918, Edmee and her unit boarded the USS Lapland in Hoboken, New Jersey, bound for France, sailing through the dangerous waters patrolled by German U-boats. In France, she was stationed in Tours at the Supply Service Base and in Paris in the U.S. Army offices. She was now working as a hello girl, handling calls about tactical, classified battlefield communications in English and French, any time of the day or night, under any kind of circumstance, even the dangers of frontline combat. During a late night research, of course it's always late at night when things appear, I discovered a wonderful publication. It was a publication by AT&T called the Telephone Review. It was a monthly publication that reported on all aspects of the telephone. During the war, each month, an issue featured several of the hello girls who were interviewed about their experiences. And they had photos, they had excerpts of their letters, they had unit photos with all the women's names listed. It's a wealth of information about the hello girls. My grandmother was in the December 1918 issue. As part of their training, these women did not discuss the details of their work. And I don't know what the exact question was during this interview, but my grandmother chose to talk about reconnecting with friendships interrupted by war, continuing her music studies, attending conferences, attending and assisting at High Mass her first Sunday in an old cathedral in Tours, where she saw so many wounded soldiers and their proud family members, which brought her all to tears. She also took long walks in the countryside. During one of these walks, she encountered an elderly couple for whom she sang an old Alsatian song while playing an organ. She seemed to make the best of her circumstances, even in the smallest ways. In June of 1919, Edmee was discharged from the U.S. Army, but not as a veteran. When the Hello Girls were discharged, they had no idea that they were leaving one war only to have to start another one on Capitol Hill to be recognized as veterans. This endured until 1977. Only a handful of these women lived long enough to know they had won and were finally veterans. Donna's great aunt was fortunate to have lived long enough to receive her papers and know that she was a veteran. Today, some of their descendants, like Carolyn and Donna and myself, are now campaigning with the support of the Congressional World War I Centennial Commission, the Doughboy Foundation on Capitol Hill, once again to give them this last honor, the Congressional Gold Medal. Edmee is symbolic of all these women of the U.S. Army Signal Corps who were ignored for their service and forgotten by their nation. They were America's first women soldiers who changed the course and perception of women in the military and influenced the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920. Today, we are also determined, like they were, and we can use your support, your voice. Please answer this call to action on behalf of the Hello Girls. I like to say we're going for gold, not in Paris, but on Capitol Hill in 2024. After her discharge in 1919, Edmee was 24 years old and a civilian once again. She decided to stay in Paris to resume her music studies. By then, Mr. Plamondon was also in Paris. He played a significant role in her life for the next 20 years as a teacher, mentor, and a friend until 1939, when she had to flee Paris with my mother, who was 4 years old by then, before the Nazi invasion and the fall of Paris. Edmee went to Saint-Tropez for about 2 years. Somehow, she and my mother made their way to Lisbon, Portugal, and managed to gain passage on the SS Excalibur to New York City in December of 1941. On its very next crossing, the very same ship was bombed. Edmee was 47 years old, just shy of her 48th birthday when she returned to the U.S. In less than 2 years after her return, cancer took her life. She never lived to know the outcome of World War II or to celebrate her 50th birthday. I'm very proud of my grandmother, Edmee LeRoux. She was courageous, independent woman with a strong spirit and a sense of duty. She lived on 2 continents. She was a veteran of World War I and a survivor of World War II, a music student, a singer, a mother, and a patriot of her time. All these women of the U.S. Army Signal Corps were patriots, and what they accomplished as America's first women soldiers was above and beyond the ordinary. I want to say thank you very much to the Canadian Ambassador and Major General Saint-Louis. I love it that, from what I understand, you're Canada's first woman ambassador to the United States, and you're here to recognize America's first women soldiers today. I love that connection. Thank you to Colonel Arnaud de Vachon from the French Embassy. Thank you, Veterans Affairs Chief of Staff, Ms. Jackson. Undersecretary for Memorial Affairs, Matt Quinn. Director of the VA Center for Women Veterans, Lourdes Thiago. Secretary Woods of Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs. Executive Director of the World War I Commission, Daniel Dayton, and all the members. The Doughboy Foundation, Yari Villanova. Jim Bears, National Cemetery Association, He was our guiding light from the big picture down to the very last detail. This is who helped make it all happen. Thank you to the Military Women's Memorial. And I am pleased to have DAR Freedom Hill Chapter Regent Jill Cook and members here today. And a big thank you to Nina Willis and all the staff at Fort Lincoln Cemetery. She had to do this twice as well. And not last, but with a big heart, I want to thank all of you for attending, family, friends, and supporters, for joining me in honoring my grandmother, and for the honor of sharing my grandmother's story with you. Thank you so much for being here. My heart is overjoyed, and this day will always be with me. Thank you very much.
Oh, I was actually supposed to ask her to, Ms. Bourgeon, thank you. But if you'll come on back, and we'll welcome Mr. Dayton on back to the podium to join you in presenting plaques to the Canadian Ambassador, Kirsten Hillman, and Colonel Devachon from the French Embassy. So if you'll come forward, where are our plaques? Here we Each plaque includes the names of the 17 Hello Girls from each country who served with the U.S. Army Signal Corps in France during World War I. Embassy of Canada.
Thank you so much.
There's hang tight. There's a photographer coming around. And from the French Embassy. Again, thank you all. And if you want to learn more, we have another person that we haven't quite called out yet, and that is Elizabeth Cobb, who has written a book called The Hello Girls. Google it, you will find Elizabeth Cobb's book, the amount of research she has done, and she is part of the documentary which Jim Theris directed about the Hello Girls. To have people like you and General Vaught and Ann McDonald, other women that served, and never once, I served for 37 years in the Army, never once in those 37 years did I ever hear the names of the Hello Girls. And I am a signals intelligence voice intercept operator. If I didn't know, why would America know? So pick up that book, check out the video, or there is a new musical that will be screening at Kennedy Center. It will be at the World War I Memorial Sunday, this Sunday, the 5th. The weather is not the most promising, but there is a backup plan. So 4 p.m. at the World War I Memorial right by the White House, and at the Kennedy Center on May 7th. I believe there are still some tickets available. Very few, but I will be there. I can't wait to hear it. So we are going to ask the AEF Headquarters Brass Band Quintet to play a song from that new musical called Making History. gentlemen. And just for any of you that are starting to feel a little bit warm, barring a few of you that are dressed similarly to those gentlemen that are playing those lovely instruments in heavy wool and headgear, keep fanning yourself. It'll be okay. We're nearly done. Now today we're going to lay 7 wreaths or bouquets of flowers in honor of the 7 units of the Hello Girls. So, well, all that are placing a wreath today, please rise, and as I announce your organization, please come forward to place your wreath. First, Embassy of Canada, placed by Ambassador Kirsten Hillman and Major General St. Louis. I'm a German and Spanish linguist. I can't do those. So please come forward.
Just here. Thank you.
Thank you. Embassy of France, placed by Colonel de Vauchon. The Department of Veterans Affairs, placed by Chief of Staff Kimberly Jackson and Secretary Quinn. The World War I Centennial Commission, placed by Mr. Dan Dayton. Thank you. The Society of the Honor Guard, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, placed by former Tomb Guard himself, Richard Azzaro. He just had knee surgery. Let's see how this new knee works.
Going down's okay. It's coming up.
It'll help. He's got you. The Military Order of the World Wars, placed by Mr. Mike DeLaune and Vice Chief Commander-in-Chief, Navy Captain Retired Ed Gant. And Freedom Hill Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, Regent Jill Lair Cook.
I would like to put it, yes. We were going to do it right
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
Say one thing.
Of course.
Can't quite see it. I don't want to block her name. I just want to say our chapter is very honored to have Catherine as a member of the Freedom Hill DAR chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, who are ancestors who fought another war. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for honoring the service of U.S. Army Signal Corps Telephone Operator Edmee LeRoux in this way. You may be seated, but not for long. On behalf of Ms. LeRoux's family, the World War I Centennial Commission, the Doughboy Foundation, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and Fort Lincoln Cemetery, thank you all again for being here today to witness this very important, long-awaited recognition from a grateful nation. So I will ask you now, you had a break, please stand for military honors rendered by the Maryland National Guard Honor Guard, the playing of taps by Amy McCabe, a military bugler, and the benediction by Reverend Weatherholt, after which the AEF Headquarters Brass Band Quintet will play over there, a poignant reminder of the enduring legacy of those who served after World War I. I should have mentioned. Thank you. You may be seated. The flag is being presented.
Let us pray. Gracious God, by whose power your people learn courage, through the examples of those who ventured much in times of conflict, we give thanks for all who lived valiantly, especially Edmee LeRoux, that there might be truth, liberty, and justice for all. May we prize highly and guard carefully the heritage they won for us. Give us the opportunity for faithful service in our own day, that we may be loyal as they were loyal, serve our country, and uphold the best for all people. Send us out to do the work you have given us to do in safety and peace, so that we may live with integrity, always serving those whose needs are greater than ours. Amen.
It's one of those few days I'm wishing for cloud cover. Now, while it is a bit of a walk, guests, all of you, are invited to join the family at the graveside for the placement of this headstone. And I just want to thank you all again for coming and joining us to pay tribute to all of the Hello Girls, but in particular today, Edmee LeRoux. I'm very honored to have been participating in this event. Obviously, it chokes me up. And if I failed to recognize somebody that should have been duly recognized, please understand we're doing the best we can to recognize everybody. You're all very important people, and we're so grateful you took time out of your Friday to be here at Lincoln Cemetery. Thank you all to the team that made this happen. Without further ado, let's go place a grave marker. Thank you all. she wants to confirm, can she take the vase of flowers up to the grave?
Absolutely.
And leave it
Absolutely.
as is? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just want to
we
be
have
certain.
an escort. We want to escort us up there.
Okay.
So if everybody can load in their cars, and we can just they will follow us there. So can we make that?
Sure. I'll wait till the music stops.
Oh, there is Andrea. She's another member of my chapter. You know what? We have met before.
Probably
You
so.
came and spoke at Lane High School. I think you spoke to our chapter because we talked about the World
Thank you
War
very much. That was lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, absolutely. I'm waiting for them.